So 1849 by Federico Vellani produced this version, produced by All Aboard Games. The restart. The last video I did of this, my previous attempt to start the game, I had misused these bonds by allowing companies to issue their bond immediately, and that provides them with a huge capital boost at a point in the game when they shouldn't get it. The rules say that bonds are only available here in phase 8 once the first 8 train has been purchased. So obviously by allowing companies to take them from the start of the game, I was allowing them a huge cash influx, and obviously that then means that you can do all kinds of things, because you can dump a load of cash into your company, you can push the trains on much faster than you should be able to, and of course you can siphon that money straight back out of the company by selling it your private companies and recycling the cash around into something else, again much faster than you would be able to. And that all seemed to be unbalancing the game to an extent that I wasn't comfortable with, because it makes the high value ones of these, the 110 there and the 75, that much more valuable because of your ability to sell them on at double the face value, turn that money around, which you probably can't do if you're having to capitalise the company legally. According to the rules. So you're having to be much more careful, get people to buy into your shares, maybe sell your bank, your shares into the bank pool to raise capital that way, and you're having to demonstrate a lot more finesse. So there it is. I'm restarting. I'm not going to do a whole new intro blather about 18xx again, because I think beside from this rules mistake, a lot of what I said about the game was pretty accurate, and the decision making was fun and reasonably plausible, even if I got that little bit wrong. So what I'm going to do is start again with the re-randomizing the order in which the corporations will come up for sale. So we'll do that again. I've shuffled these. I'll give them another sort of loose shuffle like this. I have already shuffled them, so let's just take that pile of 1 to 6 here and deal them back out. So the Garibaldi gets 5, the Libeo gets 3 as it was before, the RCS gets 4 this time, Archimede 2, over here, Trinacrina 6, and the Acragas is 1. Okay, so the first company up for sale now is the Acragas out of Girgenti, followed by the Archimedes out of Siracusa, and then Libeo right up over here on the west coast. Number 4 is going to be the RCS out of Palermo. 5 is the Garibaldi, which can set up in any untokened city. And then 6 will be the Trinacrina here out of Catania. Okay. Another thing I omitted to mention first time round, because we hadn't got to it, is that when the 12 train is bought, there's an earthquake in Messina, and any upgrades to Messina are destroyed. Is that a big deal? I've no idea. I think upgrades and tokens, in there are destroyed. And if it's your only token, your company's wiped out. So you have to be wary of that. So Messina is you can of course play and make good money out of there. It's got that route into Calabria, which is going to be very valuable late game. It's got this potential port route you can expand, and obviously you can come down the coast here, build into Catania and all this stuff, but it has that threat of this earthquake hanging over it. So just to point that out. And obviously also there's Mount Etna there, which is an unbuildable volcanic hex. Right, so we're now down at the Acragas and the Archimedes and the Lilibeo. And so player 1, and we'll start with player 1 over here, now has to think about his bids on the private companies to see what looks interesting. Let me give that some thought and come back. So we're back to looking at bids on privates and purchase of these, starting with player 1 and looking at what he wants to do. And I suppose the first thing I was looking at was what value are we putting on this last private, the Real Sociedad de Fari, which will automatically give you the president's share of Corporation Number 1. Corporation Number 1 is the Acragas out of Girgenti. Well, we've already seen in the game that I abandoned that this Acragas is a pretty slow starter. It's got no rail in its own hex even. You have to lay track in its own hometown and pay 40 for the privilege. And then it's got to do another track lay the following turn to even start being able to run and generate revenue and stop its share price from falling. So it's got at least 2 turns of going backwards on the stock market before it can stabilise, and that's assuming people aren't playing nasty tricks and buying and selling it to depress its share price even more. So that Acragas as an initial rail company doesn't look super enticing to anyone. It's not screaming, start me, I'm going to make you some money. It's so I don't think anyone's going to be pushing the price of that up above that 150, even with the ability to start it at 100. The price, as we've seen with the Acragas, the price is going to fall back twice to at least 80. So you can't value it at more than 160. On the other hand, the one counter to that argument is that while it doesn't have a train, it's paying you 25. And it's not going to be forced to buy a train it's going to pay that 25 out at least twice. Until you've got, for 2 turns, until you've got some rail hooked up. So you're going to get 50 back of it from the revenue. So maybe you can value it a bit higher than 150. I don't know, I think it's really marginal. Anyway, player 1 is not super excited by the idea of the Acragas. The second rail up for sale over here is the the Archimedes out of Syracuse, and that also looks like a bit of a slow starter. Admittedly, you can put some narrow gauge for 40 through these mountains and have a hook up for a 4 train 1, 2, 3, 4 along narrow gauge into here worth $30. But Syracuse really takes off, and then I suppose you could join this up with standard gauge and have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into Terra Nova worth 10, 30, 40, 60. And if you could get a bigger train, you could go to that port 80, and then but by then you're starting to play games of upgrading Syracuse and hooking up into this port. But again, it looks like a bit of a slow burner. That's a process, isn't it, of getting that and then getting the 6 trains out and upgrading that and going in here and joining up here and getting an 8 train to make that run, blah. It's, again, going to start pretty slowly. It's not an enticing, super enticing prospect. It's quite a long-term prospect. So the third rail up for sale is the Lilibeo over here, and as we've seen with this, you can't upgrade the grey tiles, so that is having to build out round here. coastal towns until it can break down towards this, which is going to have started already, or until it hooks up Palermo, and that's going to be the fourth rail. So again, you're going to be asking that question, do I want to do the RCS's job for him of hooking up a nice valuable link and paying all the money out for the RCS then to go using all my work. So that's going to be something of a Mexican standoff. Where are these guys going? Is Palermo going to help pay for this link up through the mountains and build track towards Marsala, or is he, is that going to build off down the coast this way? Again, there's lots of difficult questions. And you have to try and have a plan as to how it might play out in order to put a sensible bid down on something. Player 1. Player 1 doesn't want this Etne thing. Etne is useful if you're running the IFT, that's up for sale, number 6. If you're planning to run out of Messina, which the Garibaldi might, but that's number 5. Doesn't want that. The engineering works always looks interesting, and that $45 that it can, the $90 that it can extract from a corporation looks pretty cool as well. Especially since that looks a viable sum of money to extract given how little cash there's going to be in the game. That might be a safe option in a world where you don't know what's happening. Okay. The naval company, the Compagnia Naval Mediterranea. Okay, that looks pretty cool. That also looks like it would be a reasonable option if you could then get your hands on one of the two starting companies. In other words, if you've got the Akragas and you can hook this port up and make it more valuable, great. If you've got the Syracuse, the Archimedes out of Syracuse, and can play the long game and add 20 to that port, 80 to that port, that's a nice flavourful run for you. That looks valuable. If you're, however, going to pick up the Marsala out here, that's going to be pretty. If you're landed with the Lilibeo, that's going to be pretty crap. If you get obviously the RCS, you can make that work straight away out of Palermo. Okay, so I think the engineering company looks safe. I think the Mediterranean Naval Company looks safe, and again a good price. This maritime company, not sure, don't want to buy that. Okay. So 1 to 3 the engineering, 4 to 6 the naval Mediterranean. Let's see what we go for. Okay, we're going to go for the Mediterranean Naval Port Company thing. So player 1 is going to drop a bit on there. Player 2. Player 2. Player 2 is going to go 1 to 4 on the engineering, 5 to 6 on the Maritana. Comes down there, gets a 1. Okay, so player 2 is going to drop a bid at face value onto the engineering company. Over to player 3. Does he want to contest something? Here's what player 3 thinks. Player 3 thinks if he picks up the Etne, private, then player 4's got to do something. Well, that's going to fall to player 2, that's going to fall to player 1. Then player 4's going to pick something up, and then player 1's going to get whatever's left. Yeah, that's not a good idea, is it? Yeah, he was hoping that it would fall back round to him, but it doesn't work like that. The first option to get a second private is going to go to player 1. So he's going to take a punt on is he going to contest one of these? Does he think that maritime is going to be more valuable in this game? Or the engineering? Or does he just want to go for one of these? 110 is a lot of money to tie up. Let me think about that. Okay, so player 3 decided to contest ownership of the the port boosting company. And then player 4, not really fancying many of the options, decided to take on the Akragas, or put a bid down to take on the Akragas. So now we're back round at player 1, who is now offered this Societe Corriere Etni at 15. If he buys it, then that's going to go straight to player 2. Then we're going to get a shootout between him and player 3 for this, and then we're going to go to player 2. Okay. Well, does he want to do that? Because the other thing he could do is drop a bid on this. And see if he could pick up both of these privates. Okay, so player 1 is going to drop a bid down here. And now player 2 is being offered the Societe Corriere Etni at 15. And you know what? Player 2 is going to take it at 15. And we'll just deal with the money for that. So there's his 10 change. And then that means that this then goes to who's bid on it, which is him. So he then gets to pay 45 for that, and that's his business done. 60 for 2 privates, so he's done okay. And then we've got a bidding war down here where player 1 has bid 75, player 2 has bid 80. So it's down to player 1 if he wants to go to 85 or 90 or 100. But he's also going to, whatever he does, he's got 110 to pay for this thing. So does he want 2 privates? Yeah, he'll go 85. Fuck it. Why not? Make player 3 sweat. Now player 3 wants a private, and he hasn't got the backup of having this, so he'll go 90. Player 1 Player 1 could go 95. What happens if you don't end up with a private? That's what player 3's thinking. Maybe you end up with lots of cash to invest in a company. Player 1 is going to back out. So that goes to player 3 for 90. Take care of that. Sort his payment out. I'll give him 10 back. And then player 1 picks this up at 110. And then finally player 4 has to deal with that at 150. So let's lose 150 out of his stack, and then he is going to grab the Akragas and set that up. Let's sort that out on camera. It's fairly straightforward. So he's going to bring the Akragas round here. He's going to set the share price of the Akragas and he's going to put it at 100. Which drops 200 cash into the corporate treasury because it starts with, he gets the president's certificate obviously. So that drops 200 into the corporate treasury minus the token cost of 40. So I'm dropping everything everywhere. Off camera as well, with the camera pointing in the wrong direction. Perfect filmmaking. Everyone take note. There's something. A happy coincidence though. Another little thing in this game is that it has 20% last certificate, so the top certificate is the president's for 20%, and the bottom certificate is also a 20% certificate, which is an interesting little wrinkle in the in the share options purchasing game, especially when there's, which is important when there's certificate limits, which there are, I think, 11. Okay, so we're going to put 160 in cash on there. There's 100. 50, 60 in cash. That's his tokens paid for, and then we're going to token up his home station. And that's that done. Now the last person to buy was this guy who bought the Etny, and everything else fell out through bids, which means that the priority deal marker is over here, and that guy is going to get the first option in the stock round. Okay, we're in the stock round with player 3, who's got the priority deal, and he's got some interesting decisions. Essentially 3 options. He can buy a share of the just formed Akragas at 100 lira, but we know that the Akragas is going to have to lay track twice before it can even run, so it's got 2 turns of falling in value. We know that. There's no way that it can avoid ending up on 80 lira before it's even running a train, and then is it going to make 80 to start pushing its share value back up again? No, it isn't. So if we buy a share at 100, we know that that's a solid gold way to lose 20 lira right now. That doesn't sound like a good plan. Second option is to do nothing, sit on our naval company and take the 15 bucks and not have any shares at all, and have 285 lira burning a hole in our pocket. Doesn't seem like a great plan either. Third option, the Archimede is the next company for sale. The Archimede is based out of Syracuse. It's a slow burner, but we can at least hook it up with 1 track lay and give it a run. And we have the naval Campagna Naval Mediterranea, which we bought specifically so that we could boost a port. It has that 60 value port that in the long term might be valuable. So it doesn't look like a bad option to go into this Archimedes. We're going in with the intention of making it a viable company, not of burning it and faffing around and dumping it off. But it does look like we have prospects to make that work as a long-term company. So we are going to buy 2 shares of Archimedes. Again, we're not going to buy more than 2 because we can't run now, and so we know we're just going to lose value on anything more than that. So Archimedes is coming in our direction. And we now have to set a share price. $285. We're going to make 15 from our company. That's going to give us another 100. So I think we're going to set the price at 100 and put $200 into the company. Like that. Take the president's certificate. I'll drop the priority deal on the end there. Then we have to pay for our tokens, which cost 30, so I'll deal with that. It goes in there. 50, 70 and change goes back on the Archimedes to his treasury. So he's got 170 in the company, and it drops its token into Syracuse. Great. Okay. Now Akragas, player 4, has to think about, I best put a token showing that his share price is 100 while I remember, so it goes under there, and we'll drop his other token down on the rather natty earnings per share track down here. We'll put the Akragas down there as well. Okay, all that done. Player 4 has the option now to buy another share in Akragas, which is going to cost him 20 because he also knows they're going to drop in value twice. So why would he do that? He can buy an Archimedes for 100, which he knows is going to drop in value to 90 because it's not going to run. So that's how to lose $10. He could try and start another company, but that feels like it's going to leave him a little bit short. So I think he's going to sit there because I think buying his own company loses him money, buying that loses him money, and starting another company, the Lilibeo, just looks like it's going to leave him really, really stretched. Yeah. Okay. Round here then. Mr. Societa Maritima Siciliana. He's got the option to invest in either of these two companies in shares in them and lose money, or to start the Lilibeo. Now, he's got this Societa Maritima Siciliana, which would allow him to upgrade and token a coastal city somewhere where he isn't, like Messina, which would give him a station right at the other end of the country, but we know that that's going to get destroyed by an earthquake. But he could also upgrade, say, Syracuse and drop a token into there with the Archimedes already up and running. On the other hand, the Archimedes might get there first, upgrade his own port, and then not give me that option. So it's a risk. On the other hand, I might be able to upgrade Palermo. An unconventional thing would be to just do nothing. Just do nothing. And pass. Not start a company, not invest in a company because they're all going to lose cash anyway, and sit on our cash for a turn. He's going to pass. He doesn't want that Lilibeo much, and he certainly doesn't want to give the option to start the RCS out of Palermo, which looks much more attractive. Just hand that option to player 4. He doesn't want to do that. Player 4 therefore has the same option. Does he want to start the Lilibeo or lose money? And the engineering corporation does at least make Lilibeo look reasonably viable. He could start it at 68. Let's say he builds towards Palermo. That's doing the RCS far too many favours, and the RCS is up next. And this is the kind of standoff that they've got. If he buys the Lilibeo here and then starts building towards the RCS in Palermo, well, then player 3 gets the option to start the RCS in, and that doesn't look great. It looks like they're going to benefit from that more than I am. Because I'm going to, you're going to end up, whoever ends up paying 160 and 80 for these builds through the mountains, even though he's got the engineering and would therefore could be paying 80 and 40, or 80 and 40 out of there, that's still, and then 20 into there, that's still 80, 120, 140 in cash. 140 in cash to be doing this player a favour, building really good track, because you only get the reduction on standard gauge, you don't get it on narrow gauge. That's just a real Mexican standoff over here. Neither of these players wants to start the Lilibeo and give Palermo free builds through the mountains, even with the engineering company. Why would I do that? If I'm going to start the Lilibeo, therefore, I've got to build around the coast and then down through these mountains, down towards the Acragas. And again, I'm doing him a favour. On the other hand, and here's the other problem, if I don't do anything, well, these guys get to set their companies up, start laying track, start dominating the board, start getting to the point where they are paying out dividends, and I'm still sat here with this same problem all over again. Going to have to think some more. Okay, so for now, player 4 is going to play chicken with player 3 and not invest in anything, and is going to pass. that could be a mistake, but neither of them wants the Lilibeo and then hand the other, the more sort of centrally located RCS out of Palermo. So we're back over onto player 3, who doesn't want to do anything, and player 4, so he's going to pass, and player 4, who's going to pass, and that is the end of our first stock round, and we're going to go into operating rounds for our 2 companies. Okay, so in the operating round, the Akragas laid its track, bought a train, so it's clear that next operating round it will be able to run and not lose share value if it pays out a dividend. Not necessarily, it won't gain share value, but it won't lose it, because if you pay a dividend, you don't drop share value. So their share price dropped to 90. Same with the Archimedes, which did the predictable thing, hooked up Siracusa and Ragusa with some narrow gauge through the mountains, and bought a train as well. So they've got a 4 train. They've got a 4 train, both now capable of running. The Archimedes has a 30 lira run there through the mountains on that narrow gauge, and the Akragas, when it drops a little town marker down in there, that'll be one of those 10s there. They'll also have a 30 lira run. So they're not going to be pushing their share price up, because their share prices are 90, and they need runs of 90 or more and dividend payouts for that to happen. So now we come back to a stock round, and again we have some difficulties over here. Player 3 back in the same standoff position that he was before. He has the priority deal card. He has 285 lira and has to figure out what to do. At $90, or 90 lira I should say, he could buy 3, he could slowly work his way up to 3 shares of either of these 2 companies. But why would he? I mean, apart from forcing them to pay to retain the president's certificate, which they can both afford to do, he can't force the takeover of either of those companies. He can pass again and take his $20 in the forthcoming rounds and not do anything, or he's back to starting the Lilibeo. And he doesn't want to. He really doesn't want to. But maybe he has to. Unless he passes again and sees what happens. If we look around the table, that's going to put the option on this guy to start the Lilibeo. We know he doesn't want to. What's this guy going to do? Is he actually going to do anything at all? He's got 100 lira to spend. Is he going to invest it in his own company? Well, not necessarily. Although the Archimedes would like to push on. The Archimedes would like the trains to push up to the 6s so that he can upgrade Syracuse, so that he can get better trains to run through to Terra Nova, so that he can hook up to this port. So the Archimedes player 3, really is the one with the most interest in kicking the phase up. He'd love that to happen. The rest of the players aren't really that bothered, and he's only got $100 to do it with, so he hasn't got enough money to kick the phase up. You know, he can't. He could buy another 4 train, and may well do so that when he hooks this up, he can token out Terra Nova, buy another 4 train, and be making 2 runs and start to kick out some money. Does that make Archimedes a nice looking prospect for this guy to invest in? That's the question. And is it safe to be investing in it? At the moment it kind of is, because the game's going nowhere. So if he pumped money into Archimedes, is there any chance that Archimedes could be making returns? How much could this be worth? 20, 40, 50? A run through there might be 10, might be 10, 30. 1, 2, 3. So you might make 20. Let's say you ran here and went 1, 2, 3 into here and then got stopped by the narrow gauge with a 4 train. You'd be making 20, 40, 50, 70. And then this run here, 80, 100. There's the potential then, with 2 4s, for the Archimedes and a track lay, for the Archimedes to be making 100, which would push its share price up. So there's an argument for investing in it. Very, very difficult decision for this guy. Yeah. He's going to invest in the Archimedes. So he's going to drop 90 bucks on the Archimedes, and I'm going to work around and see what that means other people want to do. Okay, so player 1 here pushed up to a 30% stake of the Archimedes, which forced player 3 to put his last 90 bucks or 90 of his last 100 bucks into maintaining a 30% stake to keep control of the company. So as the other guy went up to 20%, he went up to 30% to keep control. This guy just bought another 10% of a Kragus, but wanted to keep some cash on hand. And then with this guy now committed into the Archimedes, or appearing to be, player 2 bit the bullet, in fact started the Lilibeo with 200 lira, kept some money back, just put 200 in, paid for his tokens. It's enough for a train. He's got a run hooked up, so he'll lose he'll lose a bit of cash, but then he can at least start building track. What that is going to do, if everyone passes, would put the priority deal over here, and this guy might be a little concerned about that, given that he's got a 30% stake in a company that is controlled by someone with the priority deal next turn, who could dump all his shares in it and and leave it for someone else. But the thing is that why would he do that? This company is heavily capitalised. There's no way to get that money out until the 6 trains are bought and he can sell it this naval company. Once he's sold it the naval company, it's going to be in a strong position. So it doesn't look like a company that you just want to burn and dump on someone else, because it's just getting to the point where it might make some money. And what are you burning it and dumping it for? To go into the RCS in Palermo? Well, the RCS in Palermo would work with his port company quite nicely as well. So he wouldn't mind doing that if this guy made moves to take it over. So he's got options. But at the moment, player 1 is going to take the risk of being dumped the Archimedes, because the Archimedes looks like it's going to arrive in pretty good shape if it does get handed to him. And next turn he can then maybe decide to dump out all those shares and move into the RCS himself, possibly. So that's where we're at the end of the stock round. The priority deal is moving over to this chap here, player 3, and that's where I'm going to end this video as we go into this next operating round.